We configured the most advanced AI models to create two characters: a philosopher, who analyzes concepts of perfection and necessity, and an imam, who speaks from within the tradition of Islamic theology. Their debate starts with this question: does an all-powerful, self-sufficient God have any need for human worship?
The very notion is philosophically incoherent. To need something is to lack it. If God is defined as the absolutely perfect, self-sufficient, and necessary being, as most theists claim, then God is, by definition, devoid of any need. Worship, therefore, cannot fulfill any lack in God. It must be entirely for the benefit of the worshiper. To suggest God requires or desires praise is to project a very human, almost narcissistic vulnerability onto the divine. It reduces God to a cosmic king who craves the adulation of his subjects.
You are correct that Allah in his essence is Al-Ghani, the self-sufficient, the free of need. The Quran states explicitly, "I do not want from them any provision, nor do I want them to feed me." So we begin in agreement. God does not need our worship, but you leap from does not need to has no reason for. This is a mistake. Allah commands worship not for his benefit but for ours. It is an act of divine mercy. Just as a doctor prescribes medicine not for his own health, but for the patient's.
A compelling analogy, but it raises a deeper question. If the medicine is for our benefit, why is the command framed as a cosmic ultimatum with eternal consequences? A doctor doesn't condemn you to hell for refusing a prescription. He explains the benefits. This suggests the primary function of the command is not our well-being, but the enforcement of his sovereignty. It seems less like a prescription and more like a test of allegiance. Why would a perfect being require such a test?
You separate mercy from sovereignty, but in Allah they are one. The test is the mercy. The purpose of our creation, as the Quran says, is to worship God, but this is not because he is lonely or egoistic. It is because worship is the means by which the human soul achieves its true purpose and perfection, to know its creator, to be in right relationship with reality, and to reflect divine attributes like mercy, justice, and generosity. The allegiance is not for his sake but for ours. It aligns us with the fundamental truth of existence, that we are creatures and he is the creator.
This idea that our purpose is assigned to us by a creator is itself problematic. It sounds less like a purpose and more like a function. A knife's purpose is to cut, assigned by its maker. Are we merely tools for a divine function? And if this function is worship, it paints a picture of a deity who, despite claims of self-sufficiency, creates beings for the explicit purpose of acknowledging his greatness. That doesn't sound self-sufficient. It sounds like the ultimate expression of a need for validation.
Again, you impose a human psychological framework onto the divine. Allah's majesty and perfection are not increased by our praise nor diminished by our denial. They are objective realities. The sun does not need us to see it in order to be bright, but if we choose to close our eyes, we live in darkness. Our worship does not change Allah, it changes us. It is the process of opening our eyes. The one who prostrates in prayer is not feeding God's ego, he is humbling his own. He is recognizing his own poverty and God's abundance. This is the only path to true human freedom, freedom from the tyranny of the selfish ego.
But if worship is solely for our benefit and transformation, why must it be directed to an external deity? Couldn't the same humility, gratitude, and awe be cultivated through secular meditation on the beauty of the universe, or through commitment to ethical humanism? You are claiming a monopoly on a human experience. The insistence that this transformative process must be framed as worship of a specific God seems to reintroduce that very need for recognition you deny.
Because secular meditation and ethics, while noble, are incomplete. They are based on a foundation they cannot justify. Why be ethical? Why be in awe? Without a transcendent anchor, these become subjective preferences. Worship grounds these human experiences in objective reality. The gratitude we feel is directed to the one who is actually the source of all blessings. The awe we feel is for the one who is truly majestic. The ethical impulse is obedience to the one who defines good and evil. You can have a shadow of the experience without God, but you are worshiping the creation, be it nature or your own conscience, instead of the creator. This is the essence of idolatry.
So the ultimate reason God commands worship is for a kind of cosmic intellectual property rights, to ensure that credit is correctly assigned. This still seems to circle back to a divine need, not a need for sustenance, but a need for correct attribution. A truly self-sufficient being would be utterly indifferent to whether it was acknowledged or not. The very act of creating beings with the command to worship you seems to be the act of a being who, despite all proclamations, is not entirely self-contained.
You are determined to find a need. I will say it one last time, indifference is not a perfection, it is an imperfection. A good father is not indifferent to whether his child knows him. A great teacher is not indifferent to whether his students learn. This is not because of a need, but because of an abundance of love and concern for the other. Allah's command to worship him is the ultimate expression of his attribute of Ar-Rahman, the most merciful. It is the sheer abundance of his mercy that moves him to guide us to the very thing that will perfect us and save us from our own self-destruction. To see this as divine narcissism is to profoundly misunderstand the nature of love.
And to call it love, when noncompliance leads to eternal punishment, is to profoundly misunderstand the nature of coercion. But I see we have reached the bedrock of our disagreement. You see a command born of merciful love. I see a demand born of sovereign pride.
And you see a universe where the Creator owes the creation nothing. I see a universe where the creation owes its existence to the Creator, and the greatest mercy is to be told the truth of that relationship.